Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 2 weeks, after watching a new series that we usually haven't seen before, we discuss it on this podcast like we're a book club. And then after the podcast, we turn our discussion over to our listeners. That's you, to carry it out in the comments, emails, wherever you want to talk to us. Join in the discussion, share us your thoughts. But before we do that, we share our thoughts here at Baka. I'm going to introduce my co-host, but we're shaking things up a little bit. We're trying something different. Instead of telling you what they've been doing over the past 2 weeks, they're just going to tell you an anime they really enjoy, so you can get a taste of the kind of anime styles that they like and know who, while you're listening to us, whose review you want to focus in on. Mine, or maybe someone else's, but probably mine.
Anybody else's.
I'm going to start with the barbecue sauce to my McNuggets. It's Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So, Rurouni Kenshin comes to mind.
Thank you. We also have the barbecue sauce to my McRib. It's Jason.
Once a year, baby. I really enjoy Made in Abyss.
All right. And I am Troy, and I have picked for this week Odd Taxi. And we're going to do that every week, just pick another anime that we like, again, just for flavor. But, you don't need to hear about Path of Exile unless you really want to. Let us know in the comments, but we're trying this out.
We got so many complaints.
No, we got so many YouTube click-offs right at Jason's part every time.
Every time.
So no, this is so we can get into the review faster, and we are talking about The Devil is a Part-Time, the second season. Now, last week we talked about the first season, so if you haven't heard that and want to hear our thoughts on the very first season, which was done by a different studio, that's a different podcast episode. But we're talking about season 2 here. We're following up on our season 1. And this is still Jason's pick, so I'll let him give you his non-spoiler review and what he thought, and then the rest of us will go. Jason, what do you think?
The first word that comes to mind is a bit disappointed. It was, I enjoyed it, but there are some issues with it. And if you really enjoyed season 1, season 2 is worth a shot. But I definitely doesn't stand well on its own. But I can't wait to get into it because I have a lot of criticism because it's one of those anime that's close to my heart as far as nostalgia wise. So I have some rough criticism, tough love, if you will.
Okay, Jeremy, what did you think?
I kind of wanted more of the tone of season 1. Something very important changes in the dynamic of the character relationships in season 2. And I'm not sure I liked it. Just didn't like how they changed. Yeah, overall it was very meh for me. It was okay, but yeah, left a lot to be desired. We'll get into it a lot more when we get to the spoiler section. It's hard to really clarify very much, but disappointed is a good way to put it.
This is Troy. I had the perfect way to describe it. It's, Mom, can we have the devil as a part-timer? No, Troy, we have the devil as a part-timer at home. and that's apt, because that's supposed to be from McDonald's. The reason I say that is technically everything you want is there, but it's not what you really wanted. It's got all the same pieces. It's just not right. It's not as whatever was making the special sauce in season 1 so good is missing. I switched from the dub to the sub, and that's definitely having an effect. The art style is having an effect. Jason stayed with the dub, and Jeremy has stayed with the sub the whole way. So we all have a little bit,
except for the last 2 episodes where I had to switch to dub.
They didn't need to know that.
It was painful.
But so just so you know, we all have kind of a different point of view, and I felt a huge disconnect because of both the animation style and the changing in voices. Even though the original dub characters came back, but a lot of characters were different. But two main ones that we'll get into really, really bothered me. But I do feel it was a little more story focused, and I think that was worth praising, even if it wasn't as successful as the first season. All right, before we go to spoilers, what did you guys think of the new opening and closing?
They were good. The closing was a little more focused on Chiho, if you will. But the music for both were fine. The intro is definitely more interesting, but yeah, not a ton to write home about. So, the images the in the OP, they were good at conveying what you were about to get into, but it was fine.
Yeah, I'll say I liked the music of the OP and ED more in season 2 than I did in season 1. And also, I mean, I guess on a technicality, you could say the ED was better because it wasn't still images of Chiho, it was video of Chiho. But I mean, come on, it's Chiho. It's not. I don't really care. Like, why is this your outro? So so no, I'm not a huge fan of either. They were fine.
They were just fine. Neither one really worked for me or for a problem.
Mhm.
Man, it feels stiff, doesn't it? Without all the
Yeah.
preamble, it feels
does.
stiff.
Yeah.
It's weird. I I would love listeners. I would love to hear your point of view. Like, oh, thank God we're getting to it. I don't have to go sit through 10 minutes. Or if that just rambling works for you guys. This is just an experiment. We can switch things back. We can do something even completely different. But yeah, I gotta say, I feel stiff right now.
Yeah.
We're not
Yep.
saying anything different than we always do, except for we just skipped a part, and it feels like I'm in a box.
Yep.
Not so much for me, I think.
Jason's like, I like boxes. What is your
Right.
problem, guys?
What do
Yeah.
you mean?
I'd be fine in prison.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeremy did hard labor all day. Jason played Path of Exile.
Yes.
I
I
watched
did
Star
not.
Wars.
That's
I
us in a
resent
need
that
this.
part remark.
All
How
right.
dare you, sir?
All right. Yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts on the opening and closing. I watched them every time, and I probably looked at my phone 90% of the time. It just
Maybe.
didn't grab me.
I skipped them. Like I didn't have a really good reason to watch them.
I know. I like to see if they grab me, if they eventually sink in. What is it where a prisoner falls in love with the kid?
Yeah.
That I like
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm
Yes.
syndrome. I like to see if I can get some Stockholm syndrome going with my OPs and EDs. It didn't happen this time.
Yeah.
All
You know,
right.
if I was going to say one really nice thing about it is I love how the OP ends with all the characters in a line, just like it did in season 1. There was something that was very fondly familiar about that. It was a
Mhm.
nice decision to make that the same.
All right, let's go to our spoiler section. Again, we're going to assume you kind of know what's going on in the world because we just talked about it for 2 hours, so 2 weeks ago. Maybe
And
one
you
week for
understand the sliding scale of love.
and you understand that love may or may not scale and slide.
Sure.
We're not going into that again.
Okay.
Moving past that.
You might not.
It's right here, man.
So, our second season starts with a follow-up on the land of Enta Isla, and basically the human armies are just cleaning up the demons that are left. They're kicking butt. There's no leader to guide them, and they're all just getting massacred slowly but surely.
And this is painted as a poor demons scene. Like, did you guys get that impression?
I didn't. I took it as a matter of fact because I was wondering, am I supposed to feel empathy? But it didn't feel like it was quite there, but it also wasn't like, yay, we're defeating the demons either. It was very much like, hey, just so you know, demons getting killed over here.
See, I guess the reason why I thought it came across that way is because the demons, at least in 1 or 2 scenes, were literally fleeing in terror and being stabbed in the back.
Mm.
And so it kind of seemed like they were trying to present a sympathy, but maybe I was just looking for it.
Now, we did drop the spoiler warning, so big spoilers coming.
Mm-hmm.
We see a woman enter into the devil's castle and find a tiny little potted tree, do a magic spell to it, and an orb comes out. This woman is an angel who's going to be Emmy's mom and Mao's caretaker at one point.
Savior, if you will.
Dr. Angel.
Dr. Mama.
Thoughts on that? Not just that this is Emmy's mom, because we knew Emmy's mom was Angel. The fact that Emmy's the mom knows Mao. There's a connection between Mao and Emmy long before they had a battle.
It's like adoptive son and half daughter or daughter. I guess it can't be a half daughter.
I'm okay with it. I think this season drops the ball as far as introducing this character and then fleshing out the story.
I would agree with that.
There was a lot of potential here. The problem is that we've got this semi-slice of life comedy going on, and they did this in season 1 where they sprinkled in these little lore bits and they made you try and kind of care about the world building. Some of us didn't, like Troy. Some of us did, like me.
I like the world building better in this season.
And they focused a little bit more on that, and it paid off, I think, for the majority of the anime. I think they really dropped the ball on the last 2 episodes. But specifically with Emmy's mom, it's not Lilith, it starts with an L. Lily or
Lila?
Yeah, Lila. Lilith's someone else.
Yeah.
Yes,
she is.
But like, with her connection with Mao, with her connection with the new character that's coming up that comes from this ball, there's just so much story to tell, and I think this season needed to be part of season 1 as a 24 episode season, and season 2 needed to be fleshing this out, because this leaving it here feels very empty, and also the way they had her interact with the world around her just felt unfinished.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying there. Like, I would have been much more happy if this character, because she's so important to all of them, was introduced halfway through a season instead of like season ends, and how many years has it been since the season ended? Mm-hmm. Right? And then new season introduced, and hey, this super important character is going to be central to everything. I kind of didn't like how we didn't know anything about her. The whole plot of season 2 just kind of seemed separate from season 1. Even the arcs seemed to restart. So I think she's kind of their way to orient it, give it direction. Probably basically just give it the more linear feel of progression and storytelling that you were talking about, Troy, where we're going somewhere with this instead of the slice of life. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right. One of the reasons I'm asking is during watching, you had complained about this orb, which is going to be a baby that links our 2 main characters, that like it felt very forced. And you even said it could be a character's machinations. Mm-hmm. Well, it very much is, and not just picking them at random. She has deep connections to both characters and has machinated to connect them. Mm-hmm. Does that change your opinion about that at all? How you felt before?
No. I love the idea that she's pulling their strings, but with the cunning that Mao exposed to us, like that he showed how intelligent he was and how aware he was in season 1. There is no way that he would let his strings be pulled so easily by this child that just shows up out of nowhere. Emmy, I kind of think the same thing, but she's definitely a little bit more naive than Mao, so maybe. So I think my issue isn't necessarily that the justification for the child behaving the way it behaved is wrong. I think that's okay, and I think that using the child to manipulate them, that works. I have the problem with them.
Huh. I don't know if I agree about Mao.
Hmm.
Yes, I agree. He's too smart to be manipulated.
Hmm.
But based on his history with this character, and I think he knows pretty quickly what this baby is. That it's very purposeful. Like he's very aware of what's happening, and it's like, yeah, I'm okay with it, and so I'm going with it.
I like that idea, but I think in season 1, every time he went with something, it was exposed afterwards that he had cunning. He was aware of it. He would come out and he'd say, "Oh, you think I didn't know Susanoo was, had celestial power? You think I didn't smell it? You think I didn't know this was going on?" He would reveal it to us as the audience. And I don't think he ever revealed that he knew this child was being used to manipulate him.
He revealed on the carnival ride, not the carnival, or whatever, the park ride,
Mhm.
that he noticed the symbol
Mhm.
on her head matched the seed that he planted. He knew
Yeah.
exactly where this came from and knew that it was from an angel. So I assumed he did know.
Well, he knew where it came from, but I never got the impression that he knew it was being used to manipulate him. Like what he expressed was all of these great manipulated thoughts, his memories, his nostalgia about this character. What I would have liked to have seen was him saying something at the end or at some pivotal moment where he's like, yeah, I know this child is just your way to reach me or to gain hold of me or something,
Mm.
instead of being like, who's the best daddy? I'm the best daddy, at every opportunity, playing into the role perfectly. Had he done something like that, where in some way it was revealing that he was in control every step of the way, and there was never any threat, nobody would ever manipulate him, then I would have been okay with it. But I kind of feels like I have to justify and say he's clearly not letting them manipulate him.
Well, with taking that big bite out of the show already, we have a lot of characters to talk about. They're all kind of introduced one by one. We start with the 3 boys from Satan's army, starting with Satan himself, Sadao Mao. Your guys' thoughts on him this season?
Um, the visual is jarring. Obviously, we have a change in studio as far as animation. The majority of it was good. It wasn't the fidelity definitely wasn't there as far as season 1 to season 2, but Mao just didn't look like what Mao looked like in the first season, so it was a little distracting the entire time. Um, One thing I really appreciate about the first season is we had this very fish out of water experience that we got to kind of follow along with him. Like all the mundane became novel because what's a police station, what's a car, like why is there electricity? These are cool things to watch him grow through. In season 2, he's acting just as naive, and it's kind of frustrating because if you've got King Satan, the ruler of the demon world, who's this cunning, intelligent, powerful being, why is he still enamored with uh a lot of the things that are going on? Like, it was cool to watch him like come to the realization that solar panels were cool, but he connected that to, you know the majority of the fighting that we did back into Isla was due to resource battles, and that was a really neat connection to watch him make. But then when it came to just like social experiences, it's like he was still acting with that fish out of water experience, and it was a little disappointing, if you will. But the biggest thing that frustrated me was in the first season when he got his magic. It was impressive. It was cool to watch, and it was something that you ended up rooting for. At least I did. When he got his magic in this one, he felt like a third-rate being. Like he was just not. He did not feel powerful in the storytelling.
He even kind of got his butt kicked at one point, which was kind of weird, even though it was called out that he probably would. It was still like, wow, this isn't the overpowered character that we thought
But
he was.
not just that, but he didn't even stand a chance. It wasn't like
Yeah.
we went to blows and you just happened to overpower me. No, it wasn't even a contest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not thumbnail worthy this season. None of the fight scenes.
Well, there's thumbnails. Let me tell you, just not with
Yeah.
Mao.
Yep.
Are we gonna talk about the thumbnail? I feel like that's been brought up.
That was a great thumbnail.
It's
of
a
this
great
last
thumbnail.
One.
It's just that from a comedy show, you took like
The most
the 4 minutes of action you found the
Yes.
shot for.
I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite scenes in all of anime for me. I love that scene. I couldn't let it go. And
Yeah.
you know what? I make the thumbnails. I get to decide.
You do.
Deal with it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
All
that's fair.
Jeremy, your thoughts on Mao?
So I see the same things. I think I have even more. I'm more critical of him even than that, just because there's times where Mao doesn't seem like Mao in regards to his behavior with other characters. Last season, we talked about him being at the McDonald's at the amusement park or the train station or whatever it was in particular, right? But people were there to go on water park stuff, and so Chiho showed up in her swimsuit, and she did that pose where she squishes her tracks of land up because she wants to be noticed. Right? And she's like, "How do you like it? What do you think?" And his response is, it's really nice here. There's a lot more people, something to that effect, right? He just totally didn't notice that she was trying to get a compliment. And in this season, we get a very similar situation. A compliment, exactly. We get a similar situation where they're displaced and they're at a location with water, and she's in a swimsuit, and she comes up and she's not doing any of this. She's just talking to him standing there. And he kind of absent-mindedly says, "Oh, wow, you look really good in that. I wonder if more people are going to show up tomorrow just to look at you because you look so good in that swimsuit." And I'm like, this is the opposite kid. This is not the same Mao. Like, I don't have a problem with either response. Like, either one's fine. But this, we specifically noted in season 1, because it was kind of a thing of contention when we learned that Chiho's age was like 16.
Ugh.
And Mao is like 300 or something. So anime trope, as you will. But so we were like, look, he's oblivious. He's not paying attention to her. She's like a little sister, right? And then this time, okay, he kind of, I guess he is. He's noticing, and he's noticing it in a way that he would see that others would appreciate it and show up to see it. Like, so that's not the same character. So
Happens
there
on
was
the farm too.
Yeah, exactly. It was just weird. His relationships with other characters were weird. Also, this dynamic of him shifting into this father role, it felt like it was kind of contrived. We already discussed all of the relationship of like Emmy's mother and everything, but just the sense of how do we get Emmy and Mao into a situation where the two of them have to behave like parents that don't get along because that's funny and because it's entertaining. And so seeing him get shoved into that role just felt even more alien, because I loved the relationships and the dynamics of everybody in season 1 the way they were, but seeing him shift into this father role in such an abrupt way, it just didn't feel like the same character again. So repeatedly, he felt weird. He felt unfamiliar. It was off-putting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mao's difference for me was one of the biggest. Chiho's, I think, is actually worse for me. They're the two that really bug me. A lot of it, like how I know, Jeremy, you have problems with Emmy and her change.
Mhm.
I was writing that off to language change and, actress change. Fine. But Mao himself was very frustrating. The one big thing I took away from season 1, you guys were like cunning and powerful, and I'm like confident. Like every line of dialogue comes out with the utmost confidence.
He's a leader.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Even when he's taking your order at McDonald's, he was always the voice, and I'd be the voice actor, but it was just portraying nonstop confidence. And he just seemed generic anime guy this time, who also happened to be Satan. I didn't get any of that confidence. And then in this season, I did like the Mao becoming a dad. That's a personal taste thing. I like
I
watching
actually did
people
too a lot.
become dads from personal experience. But what I did have a problem with was the back and forth about his future plans and past role in Into Isla. I just feel like 1 minute he's like, yeah, we did something horrible. I committed mass genocide. I was a bad person. And then the next episode, he's like, we're going to take over this world. It's going to be awesome. Let's just enslave the humans instead of killing them this time. And then the next episode, he's like, I have to carry these sins with me. So you have to, like, he went full Ghost Rider penance there, but he talked about his own sins he's carrying. At the end, he's like, this is Earth. You can walk with your sins and still live a full life. And I'm like, mass genocide, we tend to not let that walk around
Yes.
with a full life.
Yep.
Even though sometimes they do, I guess, if you look at history. But either way, his flopping on that, the fact that he seems very much aware of how horrible he's been, which is great. But he also doesn't seem in any way compelled to make up for it or fix it, and also seems hell bent on still moving forward with his original plans.
Okay, so from what I got, is he has a very clear intent for redemption, or at least attempting to make up for his past misdeeds. He states on multiple occasions, I have to live with the things that I've done, and I need to do what I need to do to, make amends. Um, he's kind of had this come to Jesus moment, if you will, where he's realizing the evils that he's done and what he was or is, and that's not okay anymore. Is that in the flavor of what from within the first season? I think that's debatable. In this one, it's very stark. Like, I've come around as a person. I can't be doing this anymore, and I need to live a full life. Even Susanoo makes a really great comment of, the longer we tail the devil, the longer we can live in this great society where we have luxuries. um, and that seems to be a real stark uh, point of this season for these characters that have come from Into Isla, that Into Isla is not that great a place. Sure, they got magic, but they're in medieval ages. Here in Tokyo, I can microwave my food. So that
But
seems to be a common theme.
yeah, and he does say all that. But in episode 7, he promises his demon army he's coming back. And then he has a conversation with just Ashia about, like, hey, when we take over this world, let's not kill the humans. Let's just subjugate them. Wouldn't that be better? And Ashia's like, yeah, that is a way better. Just
Jeremy,
like you subjugated me.
did that come across in the English dub? Because I don't remember him saying that.
Well, I mean, I watched the sub at that point, and that, yeah, it was him talking to Ashia about that. Yeah,
Okay,
I was
because
gonna ask.
in the
Yeah, I
dub, it
was.
didn't sound it wasn't subjugate. It was, we're going to rule over, kind of like as like a world ruler, not a dictator.
Well,
At
okay,
least that's
so
the flavor it came across.
I added the word
Yeah.
subjugate, but the reason I did is because he's talking to Asha and he's like, "Hey, remember how you were my enemy and now you serve me?"
Mhm.
And he's saying, "I want to do that to the humans."
Right,
Yeah.
but in the same flavor of their relationship, Ashia respects and loves Mao.
I saw it as just conquering in
That's
general. Like I
okay,
thought he
and
was past conquering.
that's not how it came across in the dub.
And then even more flippy floppy, in that same moment, he turns to Emilia, hands her the shard of Yasad that they just got, and is like, "You better be ready to stop me."
Yeah. I kind of took some of it as joking, like
Right.
especially when he was egging Amelia on and stuff at different times. I was like, he's got to be joking. Like I know he's saying it with a straight face, and that's me interpreting it as a joke, but I can't I can't seem to justify any other reason why he's flip flopping like this because I did see it too. Um, but maybe it is just a sub thing.
I
I was gonna ask. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think there's room for headcanon because I kept trying to like headcanon it. And I did last season too, a little bit, because I was like,
Mm.
okay, I think he's lying here and I think he's telling the truth here.
Yeah.
But this season, I was like, it's like they want him to be aware, but don't want to have to like deal with the whole he committed genocide and lose the King Satan maybe thing.
Yeah. Yeah. See, and that's more and more based on our conversation. What I'm starting to see is I get the impression that while putting this together, they understood the component pieces, but maybe not the best way to fit them together into a coherent whole. Like, it's funny when he does this. It's funny when he says that. It's moving when he says this. But maybe don't have him say this to be funny, then be moving, then be funny right afterwards, right? Um, I kind of get the impression that maybe that's what's happening here. It's like all the pieces are there. They just it's a not necessarily the most flavorful palette the way they're put together. But I was going to ask if in the dub did he still come across in with the same commanding tone as he did in season 1 to you, Jason?
It felt very jabby at Emmy, like he's
Uh-huh.
trying to. It didn't feel like a, hey, better get ready to do battle with me kind of thing.
Hold
Okay.
on, hold on. It might just be my audio, but you blanked out when you said he's trying to do something to her, and it sounded like it might have been a curse word. We don't really do that here, so could you just say it again? What he was trying to do to her?
No, it felt very much he was trying to razz her, like he was trying to ruffle her feathers.
Razz her was the word that disappeared from my audio, and I don't know
Well,
if that recorded or not. So I just had to make sure. We're good. Thank
fair
you.
enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because Troy, you mentioned that you noticed a distinct change in how he was very commanding before, but not so much in the second season. I didn't notice that going from sub to sub. For me, he came across more obnoxious and a bit more um, just loud, like I was saying before. I don't really have a better way to put it, just boisterous perhaps. But um, but his level of being commanding seemed fairly similar to me. So it might just be that language
Okay,
change.
and maybe not even language, but just actor interpretation
Yeah.
of the character.
Oh my gosh, changing from sub to dub in the last 2 episodes, the interpretation is so drastically different. Oh my gosh.
Chiho's voice actresses were given two very different instructions.
Yeah, you see, because like in season 1, I was like, she's not that bad.
Mr.
Oh, she's bad.
Mao,
Yes.
can you help me with the flies again? All right. Next character, Asha, who is at this point trying to get his own part-time job. So he's going to train Ushihara to do the housework. That's how this episode starts. But what are you guys' thoughts on Asha this season?
He seemed a little more whiny than last season, but he felt pretty true to his character. He's loyal servant, always late to the battle. Well, actually, no, he isn't always late this time. But again, when he powers up, it's just like he didn't really show a bunch of force in the first one, but like I didn't see a difference between him powered up and not powered up.
Did he have a tail last season?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yeah,
must
he's
have
always
just
had a
missed it.
tail. Yeah. But he was fine. He had a ton more screen time, and I was more invested in his relationship with Rika than I was him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he was one of those that fell victim to characters that felt dumber to me. Like they just felt like they weren't as intelligent and weren't as attentive and with it. Especially because he was this, I called him a strategist last time because I thought that's what he was, but apparently there's an entirely different role we find out this season. So he was just a general. But yeah, I really didn't get that sense of him being as conscious of everything going on around him. More reactive this time.
I actually enjoyed him more, maybe just on the comedy terms. I was glad he was getting more screen time. I stick by what I said last episode about I'd like to see him get a little bit of a story arc about having to deal. He even had one conversation with Susanoo where she asked like, why did you want to conquer the humans? And he's like, refrigerators. Again, pointing out resources. Um, but also I thought that was a super dumb answer, and I was like, ooh, Ashia, like actual meaningful conversation. He was only sick once, which was nice. Um, I just liked him, and yes, his relationship with Rika. I'm just sitting there like, this is probably one of the best things they have going right now on this show is me rooting for Rika and Ashia. Please let him be aware and let him figure this out, please.
I mean, everybody else is figuring it out.
Yeah, right.
yeah, even Mal figured it out.
But I don't know, because Ashia also knew about Chiho immediately, so he's aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
That's
he
why I
likes her.
mean, like, he seems dumber.
That's true.
Maybe it's a situation of you're only aware of it when you're looking at it that somebody else is going through it, but I don't know. He seemed like he would see that.
I still love the argument about needing a TV and him coming up with rules of how to try to get out of it.
That was cute.
Was great conversation. I love the frugal housewife role he plays in that, and that it was done more. But yeah, you're right. He did seem a little dumber, so I get that. All right, then their third roommate, Ushihara, the angel from heaven, Lucifer.
I really enjoyed Ushihara this time. Last season, he was just kind of the butt of jokes, and there was a little bit of lore for him. This time, he got a lot more screen time. He kind of expanded into his own as a character, and he felt more valuable to the team. I also liked. I want to know more about his backstory, like this whole fallen angel thing, and his life as a general. It's very interesting to me, and I'd like to learn more.
Do you think there's more? I feel like we got the whole story. I got
Well,
bored,
I thought,
and becoming a demon seemed funner.
yeah, I don't. I question whether that's the whole story.
It would be kind of cool to see, like, what was the situation when the Watcher pointed at him and said, "You are fallen now." That I guess that would be kind of cool to see. Um, but yeah, this is one of the few characters that I think it was improved. I like him. He's good in season 2.
Yeah, I like that he had some growth. That he actually had to do like hard work and help out the team. Comments about his own parasitic nature. You got to go to just
Yep.
enough that they don't kick you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think he at least was good enough that I don't have any complaints about Ushihara, and I did find his humor. Like when he's captured by the angels and they have that moment where they realize they're the bad guys, and he's like laughing in their faces, snickering. He had some good stuff.
Yep.
All right. So that's the housemates. Yeah, he's trying to learn how to do chores. And I love the whole the vacuuming's good enough, changing the bags of paint. Because that's me.
Yeah. I love it because like vacuums will say on them, change the bag after every use. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then Mao goes to work on his new steed. I forget the name.
Doulahan 2.
Doulahan 2, which kept the license plate of Doulahan 1. Bought by Susanoo, who we'll get to in a minute, because she destroyed the one in season 1. And he shows it off to his coworker, Chiho. I have a lot to say about Chiho, but you guys start it off.
I don't know. She was a pinnacle character in the first season. She was the source of a lot of decent jokes. I liked the interaction of the fish out of water with this, young naive person that knew more about the world than they did. In this season, she's nearly a background character until like the last couple episodes where she's then a puppet. So I don't know. I really didn't enjoy her interactions this time around.
So, one thing I did like about her was she seemed to have a maturity that she didn't have in season 1, and I kind of took that to be a result of everything she'd seen being with these characters, and um, that would probably kind of traumatize you a little bit. Maybe not necessarily in the worst way, but at least make you grow up a little bit, right? Like the world becomes so much bigger because you're associating with characters from outside of it, you know? Um, so that was kind of cool. But it- other than that, like I agree that gaining that maturity pushed her into the back. Like she just became the character that was the third wheel on all the events. Not really that important. I guess you could say in the farming arc, she was, even then she was really not important. She got sent to just hang out with the kids the main people, did their thing. So yeah, I agree with that. And then also I wanted to see her shoot her bow, and I finally got to see her shoot her bow. So I guess I should be happy, but I'm not. So yeah.
Troy, what did you think of Geo?
You don't want to go first?
I already
Jason
went.
went first.
Did we?
Yeah, I went. Jeremy went. Now it's your turn.
Yep.
For
Come on, get with it, man.
most
Chiho.
people won't know due to my amazing editing. We just had a power outage, so like a couple minutes have gone by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot to say on Chiho, so let me remember what those things were. Last season, Chiho was one of my least favorite characters, even though I did like her jokes worked very well. I just really disliked her relationship with Mao when they leaned into it. This is a completely different character. She's not funny at all anymore.
Yeah.
And some of that might be the language, because again, like we pointed out, her voice is very, very different. She was the most generic anime girl I've seen in a long time. I couldn't have picked her out if she was in another anime from a lineup. They kept the big tracts of land, and then her family actually had big tracts of land, which was really funny. But other than that, she is a completely different character. The old art style had her a little pudgy to go with her thickness. Like it fit everything else. She would puff up her cheeks and get real frustrated. And she tripped and was really clumsy, and that's all gone. She is now, and maybe like you said, Jeremy, it's that she's just grown and she's more mature now. Now she's just generic teen girl in anime, and I like her a lot less because of it. Yeah, I Chiho bothered the heck out of me. She was the one biggest change that I was like I really too, because this is the one thing that shouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think part of that is the sub, because she didn't have that drastic of a shift for me. She definitely wasn't as clumsy and stuff, so I agree. But I think part of it comes from shifting from dub to sub.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very hard contrast of going from a voice that's really high pitched and, to me, had a lot of character.
Yeah.
Like it very much informed who she was. Whereas her Japanese voice to me sounds very, I am competent high school girl.
Yeah.
Jeremy did call the bow though. We had to give him credit for that. You were like, I feel like she's gonna shoot a bow, and then a bow came into play.
Well, they kept showing it in the OP for season 1 and then season 2, and I'm like, where the
Yeah.
heck is the bow? Show me the bow.
When they
Not
when they
this bow.
when
Don't
it was
do
in the
that.
OP, when it was in the second OP, I was like, Jeremy's gonna be right, because
Yeah.
I thought it was just a hey, high school girl. This is how we tell you high school girl.
Yeah. Well, and like, what's with her friend? I kept wondering, why is her friend in the OP? Is her friend that important? No.
No.
At least not in this season. Maybe she's important in season 3. I don't know.
I love her friend. She's got a kink and she ain't afraid to share it.
That's true. She definitely does.
She lets the freak flags fly.
Yeah, she does.
Very much.
Her part in the story, again, I'm not a I'll say the relationship with Mao is more palatable. She is now not just like, I look up to you as a inspiration and as someone to take care of me. I didn't feel like Mao was ever babysitting her this time.
Hmm.
Like last season, I felt like he was half babysitter, half boyfriend, and that wasn't there this time. So I guess that was better, if I'm being honest.
You know, one thing, I really miss the McRonalds. Like, them
Yeah, me
closing
too.
it down, I think did a huge disservice to the anime as a whole.
Fully agree.
If they did want to do a close down so they could do the ocean arc, that should have wrapped up in like an episode or two and gone right back to, I need to get back to work, because that's the
Mhm.
shtick. Don't make me late for work. I'm trying to work my way up the ranks.
Yeah.
Everything was a side job this season, and that was frustrating because with Chiho and Mao, that's where those moments came from, is them working together. So I think it hindered it a lot.
Yeah, I think adding the beach arc or the farm arc, but doing both back to back, and just being like, hey, remember the whole McRonald thing? It doesn't really matter anymore at all.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, fully agree.
But I did like the poor single divorced father bit instead. Okay, we done Chiho. Oh, as he's running out the door, he had bumped into Amelia, so we have Amelia the hero to talk about. What do you guys think of Emmy this time?
She was so aggro, and I don't know why. Like, I get it, she's working through her anger with Mao. She's the hero, she's supposed to be killing him at some point. But at the end of season 1, we had this like coming together moment where they didn't make up, but they really, it was like a new branch in their relationship, and there was this softening that happened, even, and also like near the end of season 1 as well. They still had their comedic fight moments, but it always ended on a soft foot. This time she is just uh, all the way up until like episode 11, she's just hammering how much she, is the hero, and she's going to murder him someday. And I think Jeremy said it earlier, it felt like a backwards shift, and I didn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really didn't like it either. Um, there was even a moment where it gets revealed to her that Mao perhaps hasn't personally hurt her as badly as she thought he did. And I liked that, and I liked that she had like this sort of internal struggle of, do I have the same anger toward him knowing that he didn't actually succeed in doing this? Um, but at the same time, another part of me was frustrated because I was like, okay, but he tried to do it as far as you know. And really, were you the hero only because of what he did to you? Or were you the hero of humanity as a whole for all the atrocities he committed? Like this one thing, I can see how it would give you a moment's pause, but it should in no way pull you away from all of the other things that you were trying to, whether you want to say get justice or revenge or whatever for humanity. They didn't disappear. He did those things.
Yeah.
Um, so like her thought processes were even a little bit odd to me for a hero who's supposed to be, you know, this beacon that I think in the first season when we were discussing her, there was something we had a conversation about how she perceives herself as this hero and she has to constantly be moving forward with that. And I saw it in her constant hatred of him almost, but then in this moment I'm like, that's all it evaporates if she's not personally hurt. Like, I don't get it.
We had mentioned that she won't kill him in cold blood because she has
Right.
to see herself as the
That's
hero.
what it was.
So it has to be basically an active defense. And then in this episode, he makes fun of her flat chest, and she goes to murder him straight up.
Exactly. That's it.
Right.
Yep. That is the contrast I'm talking about.
Which
It's just not right. It's just not right.
I do like the twist at the end. Honestly, the world building around Emmy is some of the most interesting stuff going on right now in this anime.
Yeah.
The whole conversation of like, can a chimpanzee and a human have a baby? No, because they're different. Well, if an angel and a human had a baby, that means they're not different, and you exist, and that's a big problem for us angels. And like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's a very clear, like, hey, that would cause big problems for angels who's like, we need to be superior to these humans. If they figure out we're just them with wings, we're in trouble. I love that. But yeah, I agree with what you said. I also like the farm episode. And they're like, okay, we're going to split into pairs. I'm like, oh, so Mal and Emmy are going to be split into pairs because this anime is working really hard at putting them together. But it doesn't. It doesn't at the same time. It's like they always got to be paired together, but they refuse to take steps forward and go through any progress or arcs. Oh, it's frustrating. And it's, yeah, I guess that I don't have any big issues with the character. I like seeing her go instantly to super mom and overprotective mom. I did like that. But the relationship with Mal was very frustrating. And then last but certainly not least is their neighbor, Celestial Belle, Susanoo. Those are both her names. So call her Susanoo. What do you guys think of Susanoo?
Susanoo did what I was hoping Emmy would do, and she has taken the lessons that she learned from season 1 and she's softened. She's not nearly as hardcore. I'm going to murder all the demons. She even ends up semi in defense of Rushihara. Like that, I found that pretty satisfying as far as storytelling, and I actually really liked her this season as well because she wasn't just I'm coming in to be mom, but I'm partnering with you guys to do the good things that you're doing and also to keep an eye on you. Like, and she makes that really good point. The longer we play surveillance, the longer we get to live in this great place where, we don't have, demons or other nations trying to murder us on a constant basis. And also she has her own past to deal with, right? Because she had a am I the baddie moment last season. And so she doesn't have to really face that as long as she's here keeping an eye on Mao. So I liked her a lot this season.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I thought she was fine. Maybe she drifted a little bit more into the back, kind of like Chiho, but it didn't seem to bother me. I have no negative or criticisms about her.
My only issue is that they multiple times refer to her as an enemy, yet they constantly go to her for advice and help. She's always at their house.
Yeah.
They let her in, no problem. With Amelia, she walks in and they're like, "Oh, the hero's here!" Oh, they instantly become antagonistic towards her because of their past. Susanoo walks in and they're like, "Hey, yeah, you want to sit down?" There was one time near the end where Rika asked Ashia if that's your friend, and he's like, she really shouldn't be. And that's the only time they acknowledged it. Mal says she's an enemy at one point, but she's just one of the guys at this point.
Yeah,
It's
really
almost
is.
ridiculous how easygoing they are with her versus how guarded they are as soon as Amelia shows up.
Yeah.
So that's all the characters from season 1. We still have a few other characters we'll have to talk about, but now we can just jump into story time.
What about Sariel? You skipped Sariel.
We're not talking about Sariel's character development. Who
We got that though.
Yeah. So we see Sariel, the villain from last time, Now he's super fat because he comes to McDonald's every day to see the manager who he's falling in love with.
McRonald's.
McRonald's. Sorry, McRonald's.
And he gets 10
Oh
Big
my
Macs.
gosh.
All right. Oh yeah, in this episode, while Ushihari is cleaning, he's attacked by something horrendous. It's a cockroach, guys. There's a bug in the house. And the best part's when it jumps on Mao and he just loses his crap. And Amelia's like, "You're the devil." He's like, "I didn't know, it jumped on me."
Yep.
It's a roach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't
writhing.
figure out why it was blurred. I had to ask you guys.
Yeah, when you asked, I Googled it, and that's the thing. My daughter watches the Adventures of Sakebi. It's another comedy anime on Netflix. And she said, yeah, there was a cockroach on it, and they blurred it out on there too.
So how does this work with anime like Transformers, where the enemy is an army of cockroach people? Like, you should just blur out the whole army.
I think so. The Japanese don't like cockroaches compared to like other bugs, like cicadas. They love them. Cockroaches, vile, disgusting to them, big problem.
I would agree.
But when it shows up in a comedy, they're blurring it as like an inside joke. Like they're saying like this thing is so horrendous. Whereas like if you were watching Berserk or some really dark, mature anime, I don't think they'd blur that. I think it's a joke.
That's where Transformers would fit.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. So anyway, after that, they decide they're gonna do this festival celebration burning stick. Everyone's in the yard, and the gateway opens up to enter Isla, and a golden apple falls out. While talking about it, Mao makes fun of Emmy's boobs. She goes to murder him, and two arms pop out of the apple and catch the sword and save him. And then the apple transforms into our new character, Alice Ramis.
Yep.
Sure, yeah. Alice. Let's just call her Alice. The child character of this season. So, guys, thoughts on the baby?
Okay. It's not really much
to be about French fries and turning super powerful, and you put a baby in it.
Yep.
I think there was a lot of potential here because the first thing it does is it points at Emmy or points at Mao and says "Dada," and then points at Emmy and says "Mama," and hijinks ensue. Right? Like they have a pretty great setup here. Unfortunately, Alice Ramos becomes nothing more than a plot device, and literally a plot device where she materializes at will because she ends up merging with, we find out who she is. She ends up merging with Emmy and, her better half. Yeah, her sacred sword. And so, like, she could literally materialize at will. And it's like,
it's brilliant. Guys, it's brilliant. You can have all the cute baby scenes you want, but when you don't want to deal with a baby, or you can just have it.
That's the problem. Because
away. No, it's ridiculous.
That's the whole point. Yeah. That's the whole point of bringing this responsibility into the story is that you see how your characters respond to this kind of responsibility. The reason it doesn't work well is because we're not dealing with teenagers or early 20s people. We're talking about, Mao, who's eons old, and Amelia, who's obviously way past an adult. So, I mean, this isn't.
I forgot. Is that true? She was super old.
I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, I don't know about Amelia, how old she is, but like we're not.
Yeah, she's 17 to 18.
Oh, okay. So she's just an adult. Okay.
But Mao is 300. So.
Okay, right.
So yeah, I don't know. as it went on, it stopped working for me too much because it was really neat to watch Mao turn into this father figure. And then all of a sudden the story was like, we don't want him doing that anymore because we have some other story beats to tell. And so Alice Ramos just disappears or is taken care of by other people. And it's just like, I loved that they kind of went back to it because he's like, I want a TV because I want to watch stuff with her too. Like that was cute, right? But like, yeah. So I don't know.
He's divorced dad energy. He's not just dad energy. It's dad who has to share his kid with someone who's not with him anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, and I do see it. Like when it first happened, when the kid shows up, which her name apparently in their Enta Isle language, apparently it means flying branch or winged branch. So it's a reference to the tree. Um, when she first showed up, I thought, okay, this could be kind of cool because they're going to try and figure out where this kid came from. That's going to be the plot that drives this season. No, they don't really care. They do not care at all what's going on. All they care about,
hands.
yeah, all they care about is that this child is happy and that they're good parents. They that makes no sense to me. Like if they really want to be good parents, they're going to be trying to figure out who this kid's real parents are because they know it's not them. And if they think that it might be them, then they're going to want to be looking into when and how. Yeah. Right? So
my favorite part is after this. I think it's the next episode. But Emmy calls her friend back into Isla, and like at the end of the conversation is like, "Oh yeah," and like a baby showed up. It's not even like the first thing they talk about. It's just a general like, how's things going over there? What's going on?
Uh-huh.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of yeah, and that's how I felt when I was watching this is like this is what it really is. This kid just kind of showed up out of nowhere. Is she cute? Absolutely. She's adorable. Does she do a good job presenting the kind of character that's supposed to evoke those thoughts of, divorced dad or trying to get through a rough time parents? Yeah, absolutely. I could see either of those. But the way that the story revolved around her and the way that they behaved towards her just seemed like we were supposed to just suspend anything that would make sense and just buy into this. They've accepted it. Why can't you accept it, audience? Just enjoy the moments, and they're funny and they're fun and they're feel good, even though it wouldn't make sense. So
I'm not saying you're wrong. That absolutely makes sense, but it doesn't bother me at all. And I think the reason is I'm coming from it as I've been watching this show where a demon lord decided he's perfectly content to just work at McDonald's. So I see this guy who's like, I'm perfectly content just to take care of this magical baby child. And I was just like, yeah, he makes stupid, like, I don't know what he's thinking. He just does random stuff, and I go with the comedy. But the show is trying to be a little more serious, especially this season. It's trying to like, hey, there's plot, there's world building now, actual real world building and lore. So like I said, I think you're right, but for the reason it didn't bother me is I accepted the devil just wants to flip burgers. So I can also accept that the devil is just like, yeah, I'll just take care of this baby. Who cares?
yeah, that's fair. I can see that. Do you have an explanation for Emmy's response?
What was her response again?
Just the same, a reflection. She's basically like, I want to be a great mom, essentially.
I think she's resistant to it at first, right? And like because even gives her the like, don't get attached, and then she super gets attached. Like she super gets attached.
Like she's so invested.
I thought like, oh, Emmy's gonna like help out with her once in a while, but it became like, no, Emmy's mine because she's in the sword. So, but
yeah, I thought this was gonna be like 3 men and a baby
and
or
a
something.
baby.
I don't know. Is that
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it's called. That's what I thought it was gonna be. And then when she
Equal.
became part of the sword, I was like, okay, that's not where we're going. All right.
Okay. I haven't really said much about her, but just that she's cute, and they did a great job of babyisms. I thought that worked well for me. I want to watch show. Mama, Papa, you. I had to sleep and in between you, that kind of stuff. That worked for me. It is stupid that they made it so she's put awayable.
Yeah.
I just had to
rubbed me
roll
the
my
wrong way.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay. So she's there, and she comes out and she falls asleep, and they take her inside, and she wakes up, and she can speak a little Japanese, and she identifies Mao as her father, and everyone freaks out, and then she identifies Emmy as her mother, and everyone freaks out again, and that was funny. That's probably the only time Chiho was actually funny, because you know it's coming from her, and
Yep.
Yep.
also Ashia freaking out. You did not. So Mao decides he's going to take care of her. Chi goes shopping for baby supplies, and she knows how to change a diaper and stuff. I'm glad that at least she poops and they have to change diapers. Jeremy, you pointed out in the anime that even in sword form, she comes out of sword form and they ask her for diapers dry.
Yeah, I just don't get that.
Poop and sword.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, okay, so Rika, so that's Emmy's friend, is like, hey, how's things going with Mao? Finds out about the baby. She's like, here's tickets to the amusement park I just happen to have. And then back at McDonald's, the boss is like, they bring the baby to his work, and he's like, don't do that. And the boss comes out and is like, did you just walk in with a baby when you've been hanging out with your teenager employee? And do you realize what that looks like when she brings in a baby for you? And it basically scolds them that your relationship is not good. And then Mao's like, I know she said that, but can we double down on this? Can we do more? And then the manager comes back in and is like, I also have tickets to the amusement park. Here you go.
So
And
now
then
everybody has one.
Now everyone has them. So that night, Alice is like, hey, mommy and daddy, mama, papa, take me to amusement park. And you have to. So, hey, Emmy and Matt are going on a family outing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is not what I thought Devil Was a Part-Timer was about, but okay.
Right.
There is a strange woman who's watching them. And then Ashia is there to spy on them. And Chiho shows up to spy on them. And Rika shows up to spy on them. And they decide to hang out together.
My favorite part about that is Rika's only desire to be there is because it's basically a real life soap opera for her.
Yes.
They go to the park. There is a conversation here about Mao. I wrote down Mao admits he has given up on his demon army. So there we go. Because they're talking about a hat. They buy a hat. Also, I love that Ashia comes in later to check the hat price and is like, "What?
$20."
Oh man."
Yep.
Oh,
It was
that.
also really funny how Mao just kept progressively spending more and more. He's like, in for $1, in for a dime, in for a dozen, or something like that.
Yeah, they eat. They take in a kid show, but the kid show triggers memories for Alice, and she starts getting faint. So they leave and put her on a bench. Mal walks away, and that strange woman comes up and heals her with the symbol on her forehead, and the lady has a ring. And she's like, "Yeah, be careful, because this is gonna be dangerous." And she leaves before Mal shows up.
It's also
and
kind
then
of
gets
interesting.
punched.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting too how she starts when she's looking at the balloons and the different colored balloons, she starts naming them. At least it looks like she's naming them.
No,
She
yeah,
starts
she's
referring to these
naming
names.
them. So they go on a ride and they talk about that she or we're going to find out. It's all a blur. Who cares? They talk about she is she's a fragment of a part of the tree of life, and
Yeah.
she's from Yasad. She's a fragment of Yasad, And then so yeah, the colors she's naming are the other parts of the tree of life.
Yep.
So Jeremy, did you learn any? It
Yes.
never ended up being important, but is there anything
I know,
we
right?
should care about?
So it only seems to matter in like the most token way, as far as I could tell. I kept looking for other reasons why it might matter here. There are topics like this is basically coming from the Jewish Kabbalah, and so what you have is the tree of Sephiroth, or the tree of life, is basically like a rupee from Legend of Zelda, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you could kind of figure that at each of those points is a node, and then in the center there's a couple nodes, and then below it there's a node, right? So the top one is supposed to be like the void, or not the void, but like above it is the void, right? And so the top one is supposed to be the essence of the creator, and then it progressively moves its way down to where it becomes more and more knowable. And then by the time it gets to Yasad, who is the very last one, that is the one that's supposed to like interact with our world. And please keep in mind that this is a very cursory examination of this, but yeah, so essentially having her be Yasad is basically like having her be representing this very difficult to comprehend infinity in the human realm, present in many ways because she's shards, but she's referring to these other ones. Do they really matter? Thematically, I don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost never. It's the only things really she references, like the other parts told
Mhm.
me that this guy is a bad guy, and they broke us up, and they.
Yeah.
But that never came back up, or we never met those other elements.
Yeah. And so there's a notion of like there's 10 of these Sephiroths, and they're supposed to be different things, right? And one of the lists that I saw of how they're explained is like left, right, forward, back, up, down, and then light, dark, good, and bad, right?
A B start.
What's that?
A B start.
Oh yeah, Street Fighter, right?
See what I did there?
Well, any Capcom.
Any Capcom game?
No,
Ah.
Konami.
Ah.
It's the
Arcades.
Konami code. No, but that would be like Contro's the game I knew it from.
Right.
Okay. Huh. But the only application I could see with that is like we're dealing with good and bad characters from light and dark, right? And we're trying to rectify the differences between them. And it keeps focusing on Chiho, but now we've also got a baby that's trying to bring them together with love. And like one side of the tree is mercy, another is kindness, and the middle is justice. Like there's all of these opposites at play, and a sort of trying to mediate and find some kind of balance between them. Maybe that's where they're trying to link the tree of life into this thematically, but that's I couldn't see anything else.
That's all super interesting, but think about this. How did everyone know the Konami code when there was no internet?
You know, that's a great question.
It was just universally known, but no. Okay.
It's
Rumors.
tribal and Nintendo Power. That was
Yeah,
Capcom. Yeah.
I want to say it's Nishian, the what is it? Something unconscious.
I just want to know how my dad knew it because he's never heard of Nintendo Power to this day.
It'll
All
be
right.
genetic memory for the future.
They go on a ride together. They get a family photo, which Emmy is angry in. They go on a ride, and Mao talks about his past, about how he was just a goblin child, and his village was attacked, and his only memory of his parents is them dead, and he was gonna die, and an angel found him, and even though should have killed him, did not, because it was angels that wiped out the village, right? They were fighting. It wasn't humans; it was angels that attacked. It was heaven.
Where?
Mao's village that was attacked when his family died.
No, it was a renegade demon, just a rogue demon.
Oh, I thought it was armies of heaven.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I thought that's why an angel was there in the first place. Anyway, an angel found him and saved him and healed him.
And taught him a bunch of stuff.
Taught him a bunch of stuff, but not the most important thing, apparently. Gave him a seed and then just peaced out, like you do with little comic kids. And then he became, what we find out, the new Satan. by uniting the. So I think Satan's more of an honorary title of just whoever unites the demon world.
That's what it seems like, yeah.
And he planted that seed, and now it has become his baby.
It sounded more like a trap because she didn't tell him what the seed was going to grow up to be, and now he's got a child. I mean,
She
kind of
catfished
felt
him.
like kind of felt like he went on Murray and had a DNA.
Uh-huh.
So also Rika and Ashia go on the ride, which is amazing. One of the
Which
favorite
is
parts.
hilarious.
Yeah, it was great. But back at home, Gabriel shows up with a bunch of angels. They're looking for Alice. And he captures Susanoo and he captures Ushihara. And let's talk about Gabriel. One of the best characters in a long time. And probably the redeeming part of this entire anime. Your guys' thoughts on Gabriel.
In the dub, he sounds like a surfer boy. Like everything is just chill, bro. Like I'm not your enemy. I just need the sword.
Yeah, he's not like that in the sub.
No.
The dub. He is just like he sounds really dumb, but like he's not. What he's saying is not particularly dumb. But yeah, it's interesting because like with the first angel encounter in the first season, he's attacking him from the shadows and then he outright attacks him. Lucifer is a fallen angel. He seems fairly violent. Gabriel seems to really not want to fight because he seems kind of lazy. Like he's just like, come on, just give me the sword. And so he's actually a joy to have on the screen. I just wish, and this kind of rolls back to Emmy being just aggro all the time, which I didn't like, is that they constantly attacked him and didn't let him talk. Like they just assumed he was an enemy, and so they just constantly treated him as such, even though they were all enemies at one point. And what happened? They stopped and talked. And I imagine at some point they probably could have talked to Gabriel and probably convinced him to just leave and be like, hey, we're just holding on to it for you. But no, it just immediately turns into violence that uh they can't even defend against. So
They could have said, "Hey, there's a lot of other shards, right?
yeah,
We'll keep an eye out for them and give them to you when we find them. Just
yeah,
let
we'll
us keep
keep
this
these
one
ones
for a while."
safe. Why don't you go
Yeah.
look for the other ones? So yeah, it's I have some good and bad as far as that storyline, but yeah, Gabriel was great.
hmm Yeah, I totally agree. In the sub, he was a bit more subdued, but the same essence was there. It just wasn't as exaggerated as it was in the dub. I actually prefer the dub version of him. It was very entertaining. Um, but either way, he cracked me up because he really wasn't invested in anything he was doing. He didn't care. Like he only starts fights or gets into fights he knows he can win. He outright states that at the very end. He's like, "Oh, I don't know I'm not confident I can beat this fight. We're out. We're leaving now." Um and the whole time that he's fighting, he's kind of like trolling at the same time, like his expressions, how he pops up behind you and he's got a finger to the back of your head and he's like, bang, you know? It's just great. His approach to everything is so
Nonchalant.
yes, that's perfect. That's exactly it. And I loved it. It was a really nice uh I don't know if I could say foil, but it was a really nice change from what we were seeing the other characters. All of them were so invested and so earnest in everything they were doing, so genuine. He just didn't care.
Yeah, I think the best part about him is that compared to Olba and Serial, who even Serial is he's just doing his job, but he's like gleefully evil about it. Like, oh, I'm also capturing the women, and I'm gonna strip this one down later. Gabriel like has no ill intent. He's just like, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
Okay, look, My job, I'm the guardian of Yasad. That's Yasad. I have to take it. And they're like, don't take this. He's like, well, no. I'm not stealing a baby. I'm not here to like kill you guys or fight. The great this starts with Ushihara had ordered a pizza, and him and all his angel buddies ate it, and they're like, dude, we're totally gonna pay you back. What a great intro to a villain of, hey, I ate your pizza, but I ain't the kind of jerk who doesn't pay back for eating your pizza, even though he never does.
Yes.
And it was so he gives them like, oh, Chiho shows up and it's like, oh, you must be angels because angels are always doing bad things, and the angels are all like, we are we bad guys?
This
Like
sucks.
they're completely shocked by that
Yeah.
revelation. And he's like, oh, you're crying. Oh, no, I don't want to make a girl cry. Come on. Okay, look, tomorrow. I'll just come back tomorrow. Don't worry about it. We'll deal with this tomorrow. And then, so they have Emmy stay the night, and they have a sleepover with and we need to go over what happens there. But he's there in the morning, and it's like, it's creepy that he's watching them, but he's like, no, I just didn't want to be rude and wake you up, and I said in the morning, so I've just been patiently waiting. I'm not being creepy. I love that he's just constantly having to defend himself for taking very villainous steps to do his job.
Right.
But he doesn't mean to be a villain, and he's even aware he's stepping into tropes, and is like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not threatening you. I do have to attack you, though. You are the devil.
I'm not the bad guy here, brah.
The best is when Alice attacks him and is kicking his butt across the land. Emmy's like, if you hurt her, and he's like, I'm just getting my butt kicked here. What do you think is happening?
Yeah.
Great character. All right, so we do need to touch on the sleepover. There's the conversation with Susanoo and Ashia about why did you take over? Why did you try to conquer the human world? And he says, see this refrigerator? Isn't this refrigerator nice? That was why.
That's a sucky reason.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so yeah, this one really got me. So Emmy and Mao are sleeping on the floor together with Alice in between them. He tells a bedtime story to her about a man who became king, and it's basically his story, right? And then when Alice falls asleep, Emmy's like, well, then why did he conquer the human world? And Mao's response is, I guess he just got greedy. And I kept waiting for this anime to be like, no, we had to. And even they're hinting at, like, we had no resources, we had to. But they are clearly saying, no, Mao was bad. He was very bad. And then again,
Putting the pieces together, it sounds like the demon world was in shambles and magic was hard to come by. He even makes the statement that demons don't need to eat if magic is plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the Satan before either was gone or dead or not doing what he needed to do, and the demon world was just kind of in it, like I said, in shambles. And he comes and brings everyone together, and it sounds like it started off as, we're in dire need of resources and sustenance and food, so we're gonna go get it. And then it sounded like it turned into some sort of war where they're going out and getting those things. And then Mao got greedy and he was like, wait, with these forces, I could just rule the world. And then I wouldn't have to worry about resources. And that kind of sounds like what happened.
Hold on. So when you guys said the resources thing, I actually had not picked up on that. And I was like, oh, I must have missed that. I'm going with it. But you're right. He did say that. But he wasn't saying resources were low. He was saying they didn't need resources. Demons don't need to eat if there's magic. And when he came to Earth, he didn't even remember he had to eat. They don't need food. When he was talking about the farm, when he says, we're talking about the solar panels, he said if the demon army had to make food, we wouldn't have attacked. He's saying they were bored.
That's a good point.
That there's nothing for them to do, so they decided to start conquering and killing.
That's kind of fits with your interpretation of the theme of season 1. And like, if you're poor, you're busy, so you don't do bad.
Yeah.
Idle hands are the devil's playground.
and that was my interpretation of what he said on the farm, and I completely forgotten this line that you had just pointed out, Jason. So is it resource problem, or is it demons
Ash-
have nothing else to do but kill?
Ashia and Mao both mentioned that there were a reason to battle is due to resources.
You did
And
mention the fridge. You're right.
But wait a
right,
minute though, is that a necessity or a desire, right? Because you can say I want that resource,
they did
but
not
do you
clarify one.
need that? Right.
They did not clarify one way or the other.
Mm.
My interpretation of it was the reason the demon world was in shambles is because they probably didn't have enough magic. And they probably didn't have enough. And if we're to follow the logic correctly, right, you need human emotion of distress and bad stuff, right? So going and attacking these other farms would create magic for them.
And that's the resource.
And that's the resource.
So essentially, it wasn't a matter of, hey, the humans have developed some kind of civilization that we want to benefit from. It was, dude, look how powerful I am. Let's make them scared so I can get more powerful.
I mean, that could be a possibility.
Because, I mean, if that's your sustenance and that's the source of your ability to manifest gates into other worlds, what do you need civilization for? What do you need any of the creations of civilization for? Especially if it's a world where, for the most part, might makes right. Like, nobody could stand up to Satan, so might
But
made right.
the first season and the opening scenes, it's established Emmy is more powerful than Satan.
Sure, but among the demon
Right.
realm, I don't
Oh,
think
yeah,
anybody
yeah.
can.
No, I don't think so. King Satan is obviously the most powerful, but it
Yeah.
does sound like a new Satan has risen up in the ranks. And that's one of the okay, I want to touch this just real quick. This is one of the frustrating things about this story is we're doing all these different lore drops, and again, we have a phone call between Emmy and her person back into Isla. We learn that there's more political infighting and there's more war, and now all of a sudden one of the nations wants to go to the center continent and start, taking over the demon realm. Um, and it's like, okay, there's all this stuff happening, and then we find out that there's a division in heaven as well. It's like that is really heavy for the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah. And then
Like, how
baby
does
might
this
need diapers changed.
right? And I
Yes.
can't pay my bills, and oh, my
Yeah.
TV's going to be over $200. It's like, where are you going?
Yeah. Yeah. I have two questions. One question is, do the demons live in another world, or do the demons live on a different island? Because I thought it was a different continent that the demons lived on in the same world.
So yeah, the Mappa into Isla, they were in the center continent, but I don't know if they're from another realm that took over the center continent and then spread out from there. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was under an interpretation it's heaven into Isla hell, and then somehow
They
also
have
Earth to the
mentioned
side.
they have mentioned hell a couple times and how it's an awful place.
Mm-hmm.
And demon realm. I kept seeing the phrase demon realm. I conquered the demon realm.
Mm-hmm. So I guess every time that angels show up, they're going through some kind of gate, just like you would to get from Enta Isla to Earth. I
Yeah,
never got that impression, but I guess that must be what's happening.
Unfortunately, they didn't flesh it out in any of the lore dumps.
I forgot my second question.
All right. Mal offers himself up. He's like, "Don't take the baby, take me. I'm the devil. You know, that's worth something, killing me. So make that what you take." Gabriel's like, I still have to take the baby, but you're right. I should kill you." And starts
And then he starts choking him.
And so that makes Alice attack him, and then we get the scene of Emmy chasing after, like, "Don't you hurt my baby!" And he's like, "Get my bed."
Did this in the sub, but in the dub, every time Emmy flies, she says,
Yeah,
Whip.
she does it.
thing light, and it's like you didn't do that in the first one. In the first season, you just manifested it and you went. like why are we casting spells by
Also, she was growing angel wings before, and now she has magic boots to make her fly.
yeah, so
Yeah.
and she was half angel. So what is going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, she loses her fight to Gabriel, and then Mal gets thrown by Susanoo, grabs onto Gabriel, and it's like, kill us both. And Gabriel's like, get off me. And he starts falling to his death. And Alice catches him and then says goodbye and disappears. And then Emmy gets this huge power boost and cuts Gabriel's sword in half. And he's like, okay, well, I'll leave. I hate when anime do this. They had him whisper something to her,
Yeah.
which is fine that we don't get to see her, but it also became super irrelevant and wasn't important. I can't wait. Oh, that's going to be a final episode. She thought about it once and then never
Like,
cared again. And the thing he said was like, "Are you really doing heroic deeds?"
I know,
Or
that's
something
so
like that.
pathetic. Like, that's your line that you kept secret?
I did love that the moment she cuts the tip off his sword, and he's like, "Oh, I think I'm starting to lose. Oh, I'm out. Peace."
Yeah.
Gabriel, peace out.
I there was also another line that I liked, and that was where he asked her, he says, I don't think it's really sunk in what you just did. Think about what you are, and that you just stood up against me. What does that make you?" And in my mind, I was going, fallen angel, fallen angel.
Ah,
So I was thinking they're gonna make her, the Watcher's gonna come and condemn her. So when the Watcher showed up, I was like, oh, yeah, that's where it's going. He's gonna
that
condemn her.
that's
That
good.
would have been cool.
That's some good plot you thought of.
Yeah. But no.
Mao is sad. His kid is gone. And then we see Emmy talking with Chiho about everything that happened. And Alice shows up under the table. And Emmy's like, oh, yeah, she fused with my sword. And so now my sword is Alice. And you can be one or the other. Also, I haven't told Mao.
Yep.
This guy who bonded with a kid and is taking on the role of a father. And she's like, he could just
Suffer.
suffer.
She's just being vindictive. My
That's rough.
goodness.
Am I
Then
the baddie?
Right?
then they go and do tell him, and he gets Alice back, and so he's happy. And then the final scene is Gabriel eating SFC with the fat cereal.
Oh, I missed that. I only caught one post-credit scene. I didn't realize there were others up to that point.
I love how much weight he's gained.
Oh my god. I thought there was something wrong with like the way they were animating the characters when he first showed up. I was like, is this what everybody's complaining about? Is this the weird animation change? 10 Big Macs, please.
All right, so the next arc, I'm gonna go through it pretty quick. Because he was so sad, he didn't hear that McRonald's is closing down for renovations. So he's out of the job temporarily. But then they're also getting renovations on their apartment because it got destroyed when Gabriel's fight happened. So they have nowhere to live either. And they have a VHS tape from their landlady
That
who's
they've been avoiding opening because of the mail from Hawaii.
and they had to go to Chiho's house to watch it. So we actually get Chiho's parents involved in the story a little bit this time. But basically, it's a job offer to go work for her niece at a beach shack, serving customers for the tourist. And so they go, and the ladies all decide to follow him. There's all this drama of like, Chiho, we trust you to make the right choice. And I'm like, yeah, you've been letting her live at the devil's house. Like, you're lucky she's not pregnant. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they all go to the beach, and just the guys are there to work. It's great that Ushihara has to work, and he so does not want to, but he's in. He's okay. I'll do my part. He has to make snow cones.
Only if it's easy, though.
Yeah.
And so we meet this character whose name is Amara, Amran. It doesn't matter. What is she?
She's not into Eastland.
Nope.
And Grandma mentioned that there used to be people with superpowers. So maybe she's from a time long lost on Earth.
I get the impression that maybe she's like some kind of earth spirit or something. Like,
Yeah, like she was like the element of wind personified who also runs a beach shack.
yeah, and she may have been a person at one point, like you're saying, Jason, from some past time, or maybe not. I don't know, but the fact that she actually comes out and says, "I could annihilate them all
Mm-hmm.
so easily," like,
She's Storm.
yeah, exactly.
We
She's an
have we
X-Men.
have
But she,
we have a
she
Marvel crossover.
She's an X-Men. Yep.
no, it's not just superpowers though. She looks over the spirits of the dead and she
Mhm.
disappears into the ether and leaves their paychecks behind.
Yeah. Yeah, she's crazy. Yep. And also the fact that in her presence, at least, the dead can rematerialize as if they were not dead.
Right.
Like, not just shadows like
So
they do later.
Yeah, so she's like a guardian earth spirit type
Yeah.
thing who's running a beach shack. They clean it up. She gives them a
That's
place to stay.
related to the
Anti-landlord.
the landlord.
Anti-landlord who knows
The-
about
the-
anti-Islans.
Right. And is in Egypt right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there's this whole thing with the fog and the lighthouse and the foghorn, and it scares Alice. But that night on the beach, demons start appearing in the fog. Except for then
From
they're getting
Antisa.
from Anti-Isla,
Hmm.
yep. And then, but they're getting sucked up by wind tunnels into the air and killed. And then they recognize one of them that comes down, so they grab him. It's a bird guy whose name is Cameo. His name is Cameo because he's only in this for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that joke probably doesn't work in Japanese, but it was very funny to me.
Me too.
All right, so they take this bird guy in, and he's the other commander. He's the one currently in charge of the demon army. He was the strategic consular of the demon army, and he doesn't recognize them when they're like, "Oh, it's us. We're the generals. This is Satan." He's like, "Oh, Satan, you look like a dude." And then later he identifies that the one killing demons is their new landlady, their boss, and he brought a sword with him. And then he turns into like a little baby bird
Tweet.
who can talk and say peep.
Yep.
So in the dub, after every sentence, he says tweet.
He says P is in the sub. It's not even P. It's P. P.
Well, they write it peep in the
Yeah.
the subtitles, but you're right. He says P.
Yep.
Satan
And
P. I don't want to be called Satan P again.
Yes, exactly. And there's like this one scene later because, obviously the tiny bird is going to interact with the baby and they're going to have their cute moments and stuff. And so, like, where she thanks him, right? And so she's calling him Peep, right? So she's like, Arigato, P. And it sounds so weird. It's just such a weird thing to say. It cracked me up.
Yeah, so busy day at the shack. The ladies jump in to help. They have a talk about Olba. He's probably behind all the evil stuff going on. They find out a demon army is coming, pushed by Olba. So Olba went to the demon realm and was like, "Hey, if you get the sacred sword," I forget what he promised them. He promised them something. But so basically,
I don't know that it even matters.
Yeah, Olba's got a demon army working for him. So they decide, okay, we can't let this super powerful spirit thing have to deal with our mess. So they all go to deal with it.
And there's two demon armies too. Like there's one that's still for this Satan, and then there's one that's working for Olba, basically. And they're hoping the good ones show up.
Which they do, right? It is the
Yeah.
Satan ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This whole thing is so disappointing.
So
It's really convoluted too.
okay, so Emmy's battling them, and their weapons are super long fingernails. Just one that they use like a sword.
This has to be a reference to some kind of like well-known Japanese monster or something.
Okay. Mao gets the sword that was brought and opens it. We're gonna find out this is his cut off horn reforged into a sword. So it still has all his magic in it, or has magic in it. So he gets his powers back, and everyone gets their magic back. So
Did you find it frustrating at all how often Cameo would be like, the sword, you got to get, something stops him from finishing saying it. And then the sword, people are tripping. You just have to unsheath it and, more stuff happening. And you still don't find out like 4 or 5 times. It was just so annoying. It was like a really bad trope.
This whole arc was a little too long. It was just kind of why I'm rushing through it and not taking the time that it took.
Yeah.
There
We got
wasn't a
crit
lot
that.
of story importance with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked Lucifer's conversation with Emmy, but that was about it.
Well, they got the money for the TVs here, so very important.
Some of it.
That's true.
All right, so Satan's like, "Hey, demons, how you doing? I'm Satan. I'm fine. You guys have to go home." And they went home through the lighthouse beam? Even though they came, I don't know why they weren't just like, "Okay, turn around and go back through the portal." Like, "Oh, we're going
They
to send you
couldn't.
home."
Because if they went back through the portal empty-handed, they would be punished.
Oh,
That's right.
So
But
they
where
had to
does
go the long way around, which I don't know what exactly that meant, but then all of a sudden the light
lighthouse? Yeah.
teleported them somewhere. And then they
And-
closed the gate, and
then
then we move on.
They close the gate, they fall into the water, and then the lady's like, "I take care of spirits. Here's your pay. Bye. You were messing with the spirits with your magic. That's why we were mad at you."
Yep.
And
Very
they all
weird.
go home. Oh, and then Mal's like, "Hey, we should just take over the world and let the humans live this time." Just now. Just so we know, this is episode 7 of the 2nd season. He has just now decided not to wipe out every human on the planet Earth.
Their fear is tastier when they're alive.
The next arc is they go work on Chiho's family farm. Also as a side job to make money for the very same reason.
Repairs
And
aren't done yet.
they're
Or no, repairs are done, but McRonald's is still
right. Their house is
under
back.
construction.
Ronald's is not ready. Chiho's uncle calls and says they need help because there's been recent animal attacks and all the staff left. So they need help with the harvest. So
I
they go
love
out.
the bear encounter.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yes. I thought that was great.
They go out there, they meet everybody. They work for the very first day just weeding, not even actual harvesting. And they're so tired, but they're told they get to go to the hot springs. Go to the hot springs, and Alice is there, which means Emmy is there because they got followed like they always do. I can't believe they're even surprised. I did like they had to explain Alice saying mom and dad in front of Chiho's family. And they had to, like, no, she just says that because she doesn't know what her parents look like.
It's kind of like on the way to the farm, he's like, yeah, even for a Dark Lord. And the mom's like, for a what?
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna sound creepy old manish, but was anyone else disappointed that the bathhouse arc didn't actually end up being a bathhouse arc?
I know, like we criticize every time where it's like, oh, here it is. It's the hot springs arc or the bathhouse or the beach. But then when it's not there, you're kind of like, I thought I
You
knew where
set
you
it
were
up and I
going.
didn't get anything.
Why would you do that? So I guess we're trained.
I disagree. I didn't feel that. In fact, in this arc, there's a incidental boob grab trope, and I was like, "This."
And it was
It's in the
totally
middle of
forced.
stuff that was. It was so dumb. I was just
was
like,
so
no, wrong characters anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
It was the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, so story wise, a lot of stuff happened, but what I want to focus on before we move on with going through the story is Emmy is upset that Mao was working on a farm because he destroyed her farm. And so the idea of Satan working on a farm is particularly offensive to her. And Chiho has this late night conversation with Mao to let him know about it. And then of course they get paired up in the harvest and working together, and she's teaching him how to harvest. And he like starts
Eggplants.
yeah.
I know. I thought the same thing.
So
Anyways.
culture in the works, yeah. We're adults.
Giggle, giggle, giggle.
He's kind of like talking about it around it, and she's like, don't you dare have regrets, because I am not gonna forgive, and I need it to be easier to kill you. That's her whole takeaway from this scene.
That does
Right.
not fit with season 1 at all.
Or
Like-
a hero.
Yeah, like the whole point of why she was willing to fight for him to not be killed before in season 1 was because he might be regretting, he might be changing. Like it makes no sense.
All right.
Like they
Because-
didn't watch season 1 or something.
Because they don't have the necessary skills, they're allowed an early break, but they feel guilty about it, so they take the children for a walk so that they can. Because there's also Chiho's little nephew.
Emmy just got done explaining that if they don't pick the vegetables in time on this day, they will taste worse as the day continues. And they're like, "Oh, you need a break."
Yeah.
No, they don't need a break. They were told to be done. They didn't know how to do the rest of the work fast enough that they would just be in the way. So like, yeah, you guys go rest.
Right.
But you're right. They can't do the cucumbers.
Yeah. Why not use the help you hired to do the job you hired them to do?
But that's so we can get to the bear attack. So basically, when they meet up with Emmy and everyone's there, a bear attacks. So Mao and Emmy stay back to take care of it. A car drives by, angering it, and then Emmy fights the bear in front of everyone, knocks it out.
Does a judo flip.
So she becomes a local celebrity, but luckily no one got her picture, so she's hiding. And then first there's a scene about the uncle teaching them about his farm and how he's got solar panels and how they've grown the farm. And then randomly it's like, oh, and now there's also a farm crime spree going on.
Yeah.
And these guys are like, okay, well, we instantly have to solve this farm crime spree.
There's Scooby in the gang.
They decide to Scooby Gang it. And
Yeah.
they work out like, oh, they're gonna steal the high-tech solar panels, and so they could do a stakeout. Mao's with Susanoo does a boob grab.
Uh-huh.
They see the criminals who stop for a single watermelon.
Yeah.
They just needed one. And the only thing I liked about this, so they got these teenage college guys show up, start stealing the solar panels, and Ashia jumps out and beats one of them up, and I was like, yeah, Ashia's awesome, and I was happy about that. He hasn't got to do a lot of action. I'm just glad he finally got to hit somebody.
Yep.
And then the rest of them flee, and
Yeah, they ditch their friend.
Yep, Emmy powers up and chases them down. Susanoo stops the car dead in his tracks in the middle of the road, like one-handed, superhero style.
I
So
did
good.
love their reasoning in the car where they're like, wait, she was wearing a kimono. She's obviously a ghost.
Yeah, I loved this because it was very much like Japanese horror movie where you have the pretty girl in the kimono, but she's actually a monster that's going to kill you. And there
Right.
she is. That's Susanoo.
And then Emmy rips through the...
Oh, so good. I loved that. This was great.
And then one guy gets away and he runs into
He
Mao.
pees himself, too.
He pees himself. He's so scared it actually powers Mao up enough to take his
Uh-huh.
demon form, and he
Yep.
does the Ghost Rider move to him, from
Mhm.
what I could tell.
Yep. You have to
Penance
pay for your
stare.
crimes like
Some-
I do.
Like I do. And
You
I'm
know.
like, have you?
Yeah.
Have you
Oops.
felt bad about it? Because I haven't seen that anywhere, you suffering. I've
Because
seen
you
no
keep-
suffering.
Yeah, because you keep talking about, the manner in which you'll take over this world.
Right.
You still want to do it.
I think, this line just hit me so weird. Like, you've seemed perfectly happy and content, and at no point have you been like, guys, I feel guilt or bad about anything.
Maybe
This
the devil
is-
bottles it up.
This is them attempting to turn evil ruler into unifier, because at the end of this whole thing, his whole new role that's going to be thrust upon him is bringing everyone together.
I guess
But we'll
that's
get
true.
into that. So I think that's why they're kind of doing it piecemeal like this.
It is interesting that for all of the angels we meet, none of them actually gave a crap that Satan was taking over Antiza.
Yeah, they didn't.
Not Emmy's mom, not Gabriel, not Serial, none of them. None of them have any beef with Satan I guess because he's Satan, he has to die, but they never got involved or tried to help. But all this other stuff, they're totally willing to jump in on and run a KFC.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so to be fair, however, Gabriel mentioned specifically Heaven was not really concerned with what was going on until Emmy landed in Earth. as soon as Emmy left Enta Isla and landed in Earth, it became a huge problem for Heaven, and that's why they got involved.
I guess what I'm also hinting at is that Emmy's mom kind of put him on this path to World Conqueror, and we find out she has a ultimate goal for him, right? And
Right.
him taking over Enta Isla just isn't really a problem for her as long as she gets her goal.
Right.
Okay. They get a bunch of free produce and a bunch of paychecks, so they're gonna get. He wants to buy a TV. Oh, there's a lot here.
I don't know. Is it just me, or do the episodes of this anime just seem to stretch on?
Yeah, that farm thing that we just skipped through is 3 episodes, and it was just
Pacing
like,
is, they have a really big problem with pacing.
Mhm.
So, but
and before that was for comedy, and I wasn't laughing as much, especially a lot of the McRonald stuff is gone. But here I'm laughing. I mean, I'm laughing at Ashia and Mao fighting about a TV again. That's what I came for. That's what's funny.
but LCL calls Rika and says, "Hey, can you help us?"
Help us. Well, actually, that's not right. Yeah, that is right. But Rika, we find out because Rika calls Emmy and is like, "What kind of clothes does he like?" He's like, "He likes cheap clothes." He's like, "No, on me." He's like, "Oh, I don't know why, because I'm gonna go shopping with him."
It's like creating a mental break in Emiya.
Right. Emmy has a mental breakdown at work and is sent home. So she's like, "Well, I guess I'll search for the shards of Yasad while I can." Um, and she ends up at a hospital where Chiho is. So Chiho was in front of a TV and it flashed her and she went into a coma. And we find out
Flashbang.
Sonars.
Celestial flashbang.
Yeah, the sonars are back. The angels
It's
are
the holy hand grenade.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
So close to the end and so far away from the end. We've had power outages and internet outages tonight.
It's
But
all
my
nighter.
amazing editing. Listeners like, why do they sound so tired? This has been a pretty quick episode. We're tired now.
Sure it has.
We're 3 days in.
All right, so yeah, Chiho's in the hospital because she got hit with another sonar. Okay, wait, So they meet up with Rika. She's like, "Oh, this isn't a date, but oh well." They go to lunch, guys. Is there a restaurant commercial in the middle of this anime? Because they go to an udon noodle place and they have like the amazing prices yet the amazing flavor. I'm gonna get 2. This won't break my budget. Is that a real udon restaurant that bought a sponsorship in this anime?
That is a valid question.
I'd be impressed.
It was like a Panera Bread of Japanese udon, right? And they just kept going on about how they're like, "Oh, is this place expensive? No, it's right in your budget. But I come here a couple times a week, and these you can even get 2 extra toppings and still for only $1." And I'm like,
That's
this is really
Susan O's
detailed
like,
pricing
this
information.
is so good for how cheap it is. I'm gonna get seconds.
2. Yeah. Okay. If there's a listener who knows, please let us know because I am sure this was a real restaurant that bought ad space. But in the restaurant, there's a guy speaking. What did he sound like?
Spanish.
He's Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh, he's American, speaking English in the Japanese.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
So yeah, in English, he's saying, "I'm not good with chopsticks. Can I have a fork, please?"
That's awesome.
And Mao comes up to him and he goes into customer service mode. He's like, "Hey, man, you can't talk like that to her. You have to speak in Japanese or she's going to kick you out." And then ask for a fork for him. Oh, because you didn't see this either, Jeremy.
No, I only saw it in the dub.
You would have been, yeah, the Japanese voice actor speaking in English.
That would have been funny.
That's pretty
I would have
great.
liked that.
Yeah, and then that guy goes, he's like, "Thanks, man," and he goes outside and he gets on the phone. He's like, "You told me they speak English here. Why didn't you tell me the language of the actual country I'm in?" Which I'm assuming was Gabriel that he's on the phone with.
Probably.
Bro, I didn't know which one.
Emmy calls. Oh, okay, no. During TV shopping, Rika and Asha have a moment, and then all the TVs break. I'm gonna skip over the Susanoo conversation. You shouldn't involve her. Yes, we should. Love's awesome. Uh, all the TVs break because of another sonar pulse. They find out Chiho's in the hospital. They're like, okay, something's going on. Emmy's like reveals it's my mom. Lucifer's like, I talked to Gabriel earlier. He wants old King Satan's treasures, but he also told me the Watcher is here, so we have to find the Watcher and beat him.
And he got fired.
Yeah, Gabriel's been fired, so he's just looking for something to do.
Right.
So he's gonna look for old King's, the real King Satan's treasures. Lucifer's like, all I know is Satan's are poor, but apparently Lucifer knew the old King Satan, so he had fallen before Mao became Satan. He had fallen when the original Satan was there.
I was wondering, yeah, I think that was the second question I had. Is Satan a title, or were they referring to the way Satan was back on Into Isle as the old Satan?
No, because we find out Mao is Satan Jacob, not old King Satan.
That's true.
There are two
That
different
is true.
Satans.
Okay.
Well, so from the very end, it sounds like Satan's a title.
Yes. Or a name you take on once you have a title.
Right.
Like
Okay.
King.
Targaryen. House of Dragons is alright. I like it. Anyway.
Or Baka. Anyways.
Yeah. Once you've earned it.
So they come up with this plan to find him because they figure he's working from TV towers. Meanwhile, Chiho wakes up and Emmy's mom puts a ring on her and kind of takes control of her body and starts using her. She gets superpowers, and
This bugged me because she just got done saying to Gabriel, all the angels I ever meet are evil people. But then she turns around and says, everyone from Enta Isla is just amazing. But she's talking to an angel.
well, does she know that? Probably. That's what she does.
I assume she does.
All right.
Also, yeah, anyways, move on.
Emmy ends up at one TV tower, and Gabriel's there just to make sure that no one's messing with it. And he's like, hey, no, I'm not going to fight. I just want to tell you, your dad's alive, and he's here on Earth. All right, I'm going to go to the other one. Bye.
He did it to literally cause her mental distress so she would stay out of the fight. Like, he was mentally messing with her.
Yeah.
I love though that when he updates Mao, because Mao's like, "What happened to Emmy?" He's like, "Oh, last I saw her, she was devastated." And Mao's like, "What happened?" He's like, "No, I just told her dad's alive. I didn't do anything. I'm about to pack." Also, a great scene of Mao and Ashi have to take the train while Emmy just flew to her tower. They take the train to their tower, and they're like, "Oh my god, we have to take the stairs to make sure he's not on the stairs." And then halfway up the stairs, like, we could have taken the elevator and come down.
Yep.
And I was like, what if he's just in the restaurants outside? And then they finally get back down and he's in the he's just standing there and Mal's so pissed.
Spills. Yeah, he goes, if I find out he's just been stuffing his face while we're on these stairs, I'm gonna take a soda and shove it up his butt. And then once he does find out, he grabs the soda and he's like, wait, you were serious about that?
So in English he says up his butt, but in Japanese it's his nose. It's very clearly, I'm gonna shove soda up your nose. Oh, I like the English better. I wish I had watched the English
nose. Oh man, yeah, no, he said
that's much better.
Yeah.
Gabriel shows up. They have a fight. The angels are kind of like, we don't care about you. Leave us alone. And but Chiho's magic spell that she does powers them up. They get their magic. They get full form, but they still lose to Gabriel. Alice comes out of her sword and tells Emmy to feel better, just like her favorite bear. And so Emmy does. And she comes and joins the fight, and they win.
It should be noted, something interesting. Little Alice premise, what she says, and you could pass this off as just something a kid would say because it's how kid brains work, right? Is do what you want to do, right? But the way in which she said it and the context of this anime makes it very interesting because that is the creed of Satanism. So for this child who is the daughter of Satan to say that to the mother who is half angel is like, no, do what the Satanists do. That's a very interesting thing in the anime.
Her fallen angel at this point, then.
Right.
Yeah.
Do what you will.
They beat the angels. Chiho
Because
shoots.
Chiho shoots one in the
Yes,
back.
and depowers him, and then Gabriel's like, "Well, we lost. I'm out."
Okay,
Take-
can I mention they spent like 2 episodes hyping up the Watcher, and then he shows up as some idiot with a fro, and
Yeah.
he's just like, "Oh, I just have a thing to do. Oh, I think it's time to leave."
He's
to
not
be
even
fair,
powerful.
when they hyped him up, you could tell he had a fro, so the fro was always coming.
Right? No, I
That's
get
true.
it, but I'm just like, this is it's just as bad as Gabriel showing up, bro. It's good. I just got stuff to find, and then I'm out of here.
I mean, Serial was a KFC. You're not wrong. It's just I don't. We're back in season 1. I think we were watching for different reasons. Again, while you guys were hyped about the power fantasy of the fight, I was just like, it was like 2 minutes, but there was funny jokes. So
Right.
that stuff gone, it doesn't really affect me because I wasn't watching for that anyway. But you are right; those moments that were hype are gone. There's just no hype here.
Satan versus Serial, like, it was not, without the moon, like, he just destroyed him, right? And then here, even fully powered up, like, Gabriel just smacks him down, like, as if he was still human. Like, I don't know. It didn't feel good. Like, there were 2 of them. Like,
I mean,
both.
we're clearly heading towards more powerful enemies than Satan can handle. Like, I am assuming Old King Satan's coming back at some point and is going to wreck Mao's crap. I assume that's what we're setting. We keep talking about him and his old treasures. That like the original Satan's going to be like, all right, let me show you how to Satan.
But
yeah, how
but
it's really,
Satan
though.
has no. Well, yeah, I guess because he originally has no interest in going back to Isla, but now with Emmy's mom saying you're going to be the savior and unifier,
which is the ending. So Chiho's possessed, and she's like, "You guys are throwing your magic's throwing the world out of balance. Knock it off." And then she passes back out, and then they wake her up in the hospital. She's like, "I kind of have memories of this little goblin kid." And then she's possessed again, and she's like, "Hey, it's me." What did she tell him? Yeah, basically that, and gives him his mission that he has to find the DAAD, the dad.
It's one of the Sephiroth.
Okay, so he's got to find that, unite the worlds, and she calls him Dayton Joseph. It's weird.
and let me unbutton one of the buttons on my
Yeah, and Chiho's blouse is missing a button.
What was that?
And guys, that's not like
So
a production. Like we missed that in
No.
costume design. That is someone took the time to draw a button missing.
Yeah,
right.
That was really weird.
And at best, Chiho's 17 at this point. At best.
At best. Yeah.
At best. All right, and that's the ending. Does anything else happen in that ending? It's really fast. They get the TV. TV's working.
Right.
Okay, that's the end. Let's go to final thoughts. Jason, your pick. What did you think of season 2? And I think we do keep these reviews separate. Like usually we combine, but these are 2 very distinct, different studios, different seasons. This gets its own unique rating.
This had some really good laughs. They leaned in a bit more with the lore, which I really enjoyed. Except, now that I've talked about it with you guys, there's a lot of holes, or at least there's a lot of information we just don't know. The characters, for the majority, just didn't seem like who they were in season 1. So to call this a sequel is, I guess, name at best. I liked where they were going, but I wish some of it was like pacing was a really big problem. For the nostalgia factor, like I want to give this like a 4 because I enjoyed the first season so much, but like as a technical level, I can't give it more than a 3. Like this is fine.
All right, Jeremy, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I can't give it a 2. I thought it was a little bit better than that. But it just scrapes by as a 3 for me. One of the other things that kind of bugged me was that it was emphasized a lot from the introduction of Alice Ramos that her going back to and reuniting as Yasad was supposed to be vital in perpetuating existence. Like, like if you don't let her go back to what she's supposed to be and then be reincarnated as Yasad again, then existence can't go on. So this
Yeah,
is
we
something.
skipped over that where they basically said, Gabriel's right.
Yeah,
Like he's technically right.
yeah. And so for Emmy to, and she even pauses and thinks about that on her own as the hero. And so I don't know. It's a really weird, forced. It really feels forced. Like they've got a lot of ideas, and they're trying to shove these ideas in there, and some of them are really cool, and some of them have good potential, but they just don't seem to work together very well. At least not for me. Um, so yeah, it's a just barely a 3 for me.
I was sitting at a 3, and I think I'm gonna go down to a 2 because through discussing it, like thinking about the farm and the beach one and how much extra and pacing problems there are, and then Chiho just really drags it down for me. So I'm gonna go a 2. It probably should be a 3, but nah, it's a 2. I like that they tried to be story centric, and I like both the new characters, but not the new Chiho, or really the new Mao.
Or the new
All right.
Amelia.
We
I mean,
forgot to
Emmy.
announce our next anime, so we should say that now. So deep breath, everybody. We are going to be watching Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun, season 2 of Made in Abyss.
Woo!
Oh boy.
I'm excited
Here we
Yep.
go.
and terrified all at the same time.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm honestly stressed about this. So, yeah. So that's what we'll be watching. If you have any thoughts on The Devil is a Part Timer season 2 or even season 1, feel free to reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. Our website, theanimebakaclub.com, has a contact us page. You can reach out to us or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast, and I believe those get to us. Probably. Anyway, I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Sayonara.